Great. So we're live. Welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And I'm very excited today to be speaking with Wout Hermans. And Wout, you're in Amsterdam and I'm in The Hague. So we're actually not that far away. We're still doing it remote. That's just the way it goes. But Wout, you're the Enterprise Transformation Manager at Mural. Which is the tool that all the rage, online whiteboard. You also participated in the Nomad Cruise, so we're going to get into that. But let's start with the first question, which is, what does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Yeah, good question. And thanks for having me. So I would split up my virtual working place into two different modes. The one mode that I'm in now at home, this is my home office. I work from here, I think about like 75% of the time. And I have like a big monitor, ergonomic chair, everything that I need here to get my work done. And the other time I really like to spend outside of my home in coffee places, in co-working spaces, whether that's in Amsterdam or when I'm traveling for work, maybe somewhere else. And for that, I also have my whole kit of like my iPad, my laptop stand, my ergonomic mouse, and all the little tools that I need to still work ergonomically and comfortably. But I do like to get inspired by some new places and actually going out there to meet some people, because as you see in my living room, there are not so many people to meet, and I do like that.
Yeah, it's like, thankfully in your own home, there's not a lot of people hanging out unless you invited them there. So
exactly.
So interesting. So, but in terms of like all your ergonomic things that you have, is that something that you have bought yourself, or is that something the company provides for you? How does that work?
Yeah, good one. I actually started buying these things myself even before I joined Mural, but they did help me with some newer purchases that I had around that, because they appreciate that it is important to have like a comfortable and ergonomic work situation. So I'm definitely supported in that, which I really appreciate as well.
Yeah, different companies around the world do it different ways. And in the US, the health insurance, it's tied to the company. So it's in the company's best interest to supply people with ergonomic things. And in places like the Netherlands, we have our own health insurance. It's not dependent on any particular company. So then it's usually up to the individual to supply it.
That's true. So even though I would I would invest into it myself, because I've had some problems in the past with RSI, for example, on my arm. So I do know the value of it. So I would happily invest in it.
Yeah,
it's something you work on probably like close to 10 hours a day. So it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I have the same standing desk, all kinds of stuff. And I'm curious. So you're in your home office 75% of the time. What makes you leave the house when you go to your coffee shops or co-working spaces? Why? What tasks are you doing then?
So I would do most of my meetings from home, even though I still have like online meetings wherever I am, even sometimes on my bike, to be honest. I cycle around and I'm sometimes calling with my that will be with my close colleagues, and they're like, "Hey, where are you?" Well, actually on the bike in the park, just enjoying the sun. But usually when I go out to a coffee place, it would be to get some new inspiration. Whenever I'm writing something or actually have to focus deeply, I can do that better when I'm in a different environment where I just put on my headphones. And the second part is actually to just meet some other people. I have a group of friends here in Amsterdam who are like digital nomads, freelancers, who work in the same situation as me, basically. They also like to go out there sometimes. So we have a WhatsApp group, I think, of about 20 people now, where we just write like, "Hey, I'm going out in the afternoon or in the morning. Who wants to join?" We just pick a spot and meet there, and then we are kind of like, like fake colleagues or something we call it sometimes.
Fake colleagues, yeah, but you're real. So it's like random people getting together, working on your own things, but being social and working on your own things.
Exactly, and we have the same like water cooler chat or chat over a coffee, and we help each other out with some problems that we're facing, and it's just like normal colleagues.
How did you meet these people?
Actually, most of them I met on the Nomad Cruise, which we're going to talk about in a bit. So like it has been like a very great network building exercise for me, and through that now like I had like a core group of friends who have their own friends, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And randomly by posting something on LinkedIn or on Instagram, actually others asked like, hey, that sounds cool. Can we join that group? And through that, I'm meeting new people all the time.
So I ask these questions because so many remote workers complain about feeling lonely, working in your house all the time, and this kind of idea, I think, would help a lot of people, which is just to have this ad hoc group that you can WhatsApp and say, hey, I'm going to go work at the coffee shop X in the afternoon between 2 and 6. If anybody wants to join, I'll be there. And then people join or not. And
exactly, yeah,
perfect.
It's free to join, no obligations. Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool. And is there any structure to the work sessions, or just people show up at a table and everybody just starts working? I mean, do you tell each other, for instance, what you're working on, or do you check in with each other? What does that look like?
Yeah, like that's a good question, because in the beginning when we started off, we did that really structured actually. We had kind of like this Pomodoro technique of like, now we're going to work for 25 minutes, everybody focused, then we'll have 5 minutes of chatting, and then we'll repeat the same thing over and over again. That did seem to work really well. And I don't know actually why we stopped doing that. We did have like a more structure to it. Now we are a bit more flexible, I think, in terms of chatting over focusing. A little bit like you would be in an office when you have your headphones on. You want to focus. Otherwise, we'll just go for a coffee and chat somewhere else.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's sort of a self-organizing colleagues.
Yeah, but I do like this reminder of the structured work, and then we need to introduce that again. I think it's nice to speak about like the topics that you're going to work on, because it always sparks some conversations and ideas, I think.
Yeah, indeed. You're right. Like other people knowing what you're doing, like, oh yeah, how do you do that? And how do you use opt-in Monster for whatever? I mean, it's all kinds of good things. Interesting. Okay, we're going to talk about the Nomad Cruise in a second, but I want to dive into your experience at Mural, just because it's all the rage. So you're the Enterprise Transformation Manager at Mural. You have offices in the Netherlands, obviously, Buenos Aires, San Francisco, you mentioned Berlin, and some other places. So you guys are clearly working across a number of different time zones with a number of different people. Tell me, what is an Enterprise Transformation Manager? And then tell people a little bit about what Mural does.
Exactly, a good point. Let me start with that. So what Mural is basically an online whiteboard or a digital workspace for teams to collaborate visually. So I always compare it a little bit to Google Docs. In Google Docs, you can collaborate with multiple people at the same time in real time, and you see changes that are made. In Mural, that happens the same, but you're basically working on like a white canvas where you can add sticky notes, you can add images, videos, whatever elements you want to add to collaborate visually. Used a lot for online workshops, for design thinking workshops, for agile practices, etc. You can come up with almost any use case that you want. That also rolls up a little bit into the role that I have. So an enterprise transformation manager. Basically, we gave it that name intentionally. My role is kind of like a client success manager, or maybe a modern version of an account manager. I work with existing clients. But I'm not just focused on teaching people the tool and getting new licenses and those technicalities. But it's a little bit broader. I'm kind of more of a consultant in teaching the client to collaborate digitally and collaborate online. Because we've experienced it's not just about like implementing a tool or a software like Mural that's going to change anything at a company. It's actually about the practices and the rituals around that are much more important to get any success out of it. So,
for sure. So where do you start with somebody? How do you start them down the path of this digital online collaboration? Because that is, yeah. So where do you start?
it is a huge task, and it definitely doesn't happen overnight. So where do we start? It's very different per company, because we work with enterprises that are as big as the IBMs and the SAPs of this world, very traditional, very large corporations, to maybe more digital native companies like Spotify and Netflix. as you can imagine, at the more digital native companies, people are more used to working online, to having online meetings like this. So they would basically, they don't need so much support. They like a little bit of our help, but they usually get on with it fairly quickly. Especially the I would say like more design focused roles. People who are actually working with online tools, people get it very quickly, and they know how to work there. If I'm working with corporations, with bigger corporations, I come from that background myself as well. I used to work at IBM with other corporations, so I definitely know how it's going there. And it is very common still to have like meetings, definitely no camera on, but not even in a video conferencing or audio conferencing setup. It's over phone even. So sometimes they have a long way to come. And we don't try to boil the ocean there, but take them with little steps. Like, hey, let's try video on, and let's try to use Mural for simple tasks. Maybe just for an online meeting, or for a stand-up meeting, to visualize the things that we are working on as a team. So it's really in these little steps.
Okay, so little steps trying to get people online. And yeah, I've also noticed at the bigger companies that they're a little bit more behind in terms of software. And I won't even say it's the tools. It's more like people not turning their videos on, this really old equipment. Why do you think that is? What is it? Why do you think people don't like turning their videos on?
I think it's like comfort in a way. It's nice to hide. But with not having the webcam on. I do think, of course, like we will both agree on this. Like, a lot of visual communication is lost if you don't have the webcam on. I think I've heard a number of reasons actually. Like, one of them is like, hey, I'm not in my business attire at the moment now, so I don't want to show myself to the client like this. So that's why I don't turn on my video. I think it's like little things that are keeping people from doing it. But I think the way to change that is to actually just switch it on and see people see the value of it. So I have been in meetings where there are like 15 people from a customer. Everybody had their videos switched off, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch mine on because I believe that this is important. And then I saw like more and more people switching it on during the call, and also in later calls with them. More and more people switch the videos on. So I think you need some change makers, and maybe people need to see the value of it, because it is a change in working since from what people are used to.
Yeah, indeed. And I like the idea of like showing them what is the value of turning on the camera. Because immediately the extroverts in the group usually turn their cameras on, like, oh, this is nice. I love seeing people. It's way more fun this way. And then slowly others start to do it. But I've also found that the reason why people don't do it is they're hiding. They want to hide for whatever reason, like clothing, maybe their background's not appropriate, or the kids are there, or it's a bad hair day or something. So
or they are just on their phone. They're like doing something else. Another common reason, I think.
Multitasking. I think that's probably the biggest reason. Yeah, why they're not paying attention. So then, what do you guys? I would say let's describe a little bit about how you work at Mural across the different time zones. Like, how is it? Just on a very general level, how are you structured?
Yeah.
How do you guys work? Like, how do you have stand-up meetings? How do you coordinate with each other?
Yeah, definitely. So Mural is originally from Buenos Aires, from Argentina. That is why most of my team members or of the company is in Buenos Aires. I think about like 50 people are there. And then we are 75 in total. So there are 25 spread over mainly the US. There are like, there's an office in San Francisco, and then there are some people spread over the US. And currently we have 3 people outside of the Americas, and that is 1 in London, me in Amsterdam, and 1 in Berlin. And we all work from home or from co-working spaces. And we typically work together as a team. I'm in the customer experience team. We are with about 10 people. We have like weekly meetings with our team on a Monday late afternoon, beginning of the evening for me, early in the morning for San Francisco. And then we have like stand-ups to talk about what we're all working on, what we're busy with, what problems we have, so we can all chip in there. And on a daily level, we do kind of like an online stand up in Slack. We have like a bot there where everybody just updates what he's working on for the day, and that's nothing very elaborate. It's just for yourself also to get an idea of what I'm going to focus on. You just write there for, like, it just takes a minute what you're working on. Everybody sees that, and I usually browse through that and chip in when I see, oh, someone is working on that or struggling with that. Like, hey, I know something, and we just help
just
each
like
other.
in your work, your ad hoc colleagues in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So you've got daily stand-ups and weekly meetings. You guys are using Slack, and for your, what do you use to talk to each other?
We use Zoom.
Okay.
We're a big fan of using Zoom because of the great audio and video quality, but also definitely the breakout rooms, because we tend to do workshops quite a lot. So breakout rooms functionality is amazing.
Yeah, it's like one of the greatest features. Zoom is so great overall. I'm a slavish fangirl for sure. I get no money from them, from anybody that's listening. I'm just a fangirl. I just totally love it. But if Zoom wants to offer me money, I'll gladly take it. That would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I have to mention, like, we use Zoom and Slack, but mainly we use Mural. Of course, we gotta.
I was gonna ask.
Dog food.
Clearly, yeah. I just hate the phrase "eating your own dog food," because look, who wants to eat dog food? But
that's
so, what do you guys then use Mural for? Like, how does Mural play into your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so we tend to use it maybe like unnecessarily for everything. we try out everything. Like, sometimes we're like, oh, I don't think this is the best use case for Mural, but let's try it out. And then if it doesn't work, then we'll put it into something else. And I have some examples for that, where I was making an overview of a lot of data, and I was like, let's try it out in Mural. Didn't work so well for that use case, so we used the Airtable instead, which is kind of an online version of Excel, I would say, or a database. But I use it for many use cases. One is, for example, account mapping. If I'm like working with a new customer, I'm trying to understand the organization, trying to understand what their needs are, what they're trying to do, how the organization is structured in terms of people who are their customers. I work that out visually on a canvas in Mural for myself, and usually I work together with someone from sales on that. So we work on that Mural together, synchronously or asynchronously, which is the beauty of it as well. Other use cases would be, actually, for almost every online meeting that I have, we just open up a Mural. Even if it's just a one-on-one meeting to catch up with someone or to discuss some topics, just open up a Mural, and we paste links in there of things that we are discussing, or we work out the notes in there visually. So we're sure that we understand each other, and both get the most value out of it.
So indeed, it's got me thinking, like, one of the aspects for great online meetings is, one, being able to see each other and turning the cameras on. And another one of the aspects is being to visualize what we're actually talking about together. And so, I mean, in the combination of having video and having sort of this whiteboard that everybody can access and post anything to easily. So like photos, videos, text, I'm sure, other stuff, I don't know what else is included in those categories, but I'm sure tons of stuff, and just being able to visually see what you're doing. Yeah. And so then do you just share your screen, and people, I mean, everybody's logged into Mural, obviously, and they can add things, but do you share your screen, or is everybody just looking at their own instance of Mural on a separate monitor?
Yeah, so when I collaborate with colleagues, it's usually everybody is working in their own instance of Mural. In there, I can summon people to look at the part of the Mural that I am looking at, so I can guide them around. That's I would say the best way to collaborate. I would sometimes share my screen. That is mainly if I'm working with people who are new to Mural, who haven't used it before, or have a limited amount of knowledge, and I guide them around by sharing my screen. But usually we just open up like the video and a mural on the side. And indeed, what you mentioned in terms of being able to visually see what others are doing, it comes up with it brings a lot of alignment. It's one of the advantages that we see of using Mural, because very often in language, in voice, but also seeing each other, still a lot of communication is lost, and still we are not aligned. Like, I can tell you something in an idea that you have, and you might interpret that in a very different way. But once I visualize it, then it's like, that's what you mean. And then
Right.
we really get aligned.
Right. And so it's sort of the modern or the digital version of everybody standing around a whiteboard and saying, no, this is what I mean. I'm going to draw like this puppy and this whatever it is that you're talking about, like, oh, this is what I mean. I'll just draw it for you quickly. And on Mural, you're basically doing the same thing for people. You're just doing it virtually.
Exactly like that. And that brings up actually another advantage, and that is kind of more of inclusion and confidence of people. If there is someone at the whiteboard, it's usually the person with the marker and who's closest to the whiteboard that is the one that is writing. If everybody has their own workspace in front of them for their laptop, there's a much lower barrier for them to share something. And if other people are sharing something, then you have a little bit more peer pressure to actually also start sharing yourself. So you have a little bit more engagement in there as well.
Oh, I love it. Indeed, because I forget that there's one person that's got the pen and they've got the power, whereas you're sort of distributing the power. Everybody has the pen.
Yeah.
And since we're not physically standing, we don't have to physically crowd each other. Everybody can contribute. So in a way, you're equalizing a lot. And in this case, remote has an advantage over in person.
Totally. Also for people who couldn't make it to that session, for example, because it's all stored in the cloud, it's all digital, so they could log into the Mural afterwards and see what's happened. Whereas it's harder to walk into the room and see what's still on the whiteboard. So it brings those advantages as well.
In combination with recording your meetings, then they've got everything they need to know. Like they don't even need to. Can you look back at the history in Mural? Can you like do a playback of like, this is where we started and this is where we end up?
In a way, but that is actually a feature that we are looking at, because we've gotten that request before, and it's that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I know what it's like to get in like requests. Everybody, who knows how often it would get used, but it would be pretty interesting for people.
No, definitely, I think so, because a lot is said in the process of doing the workshop, rather than just looking at the end result. So I definitely do see the value of it.
Yeah, curious. Okay, so what do you guys struggle with? It can't all be roses over there. You guys, I'm sure there's some challenges.
No, of course there always are. Maybe one of the main challenges that we see in getting this way of working across, this visual way of working, that it's often hard to explain. I'm curious if listeners immediately got what we have been explaining here. It's much easier to see what Mural is if you visualize it. Again, it's one of the powers of Mural, but you gotta see it, and then you learn it. But then still, it's hard for people to imagine what to use this for, when to use this, because you can do so many things. I mean, I named a few use cases, but there are so many things that it sometimes overwhelms people, and they're like, okay, but yeah, where do I start with this? And the other thing is that it doesn't really replace something that we do already. It's not like Skype is replacing a normal phone call, or Slack is replacing email. Mural isn't replacing something that we are doing in online meetings now already. It's kind of like a new thing. It's a new addition in there. So it's hard to have people to make people see the value of that, I would say.
Yeah, and at the same time, I get daily emails from people asking, is there an online whiteboard that I can use?
Oh, wow.
It's like the number one question after how do I get a remote job, which is what whiteboard? Because there's many different whiteboards out there, and people, and also I think people just don't know that this is available. So it's almost like they don't know what they're missing yet. They don't know how much pain they're in, because they've never experienced not being in pain. So it's a tough problem to solve, except you know that there's a need out there. Everybody's looking for like, yeah, but how do you do that online? And I think, oh, Mural, just go to Mural.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to hear that there is a market, and maybe that comes into to what we are really working on. Like, we are still a small company. As I said, we are 75 people, which is fairly small for such a an enterprise tool that we're actually trying to be. So we're working on scaling at the moment, on like getting this out there more, and then people don't have to ask the question anymore what whiteboard to use, but they'll just think about Mural.
Yeah, it'll just be a no-brainer. And exactly. How do you guys deal with conflict when it happens between remote colleagues? I mean, it must come up that there's like disagreements and fighting, and so what's your social norms for dealing with that?
Right, that's a good question. Um, I haven't had big conflicts coming up in meetings that I've been, but I do feel some conflicts sometimes coming up, and I would say most of them most of them come. I know the reason for most of the conflicts is that people don't understand what other people are doing, what they are working on. So they kind of assume this person is trying to do this, and that interferes with what I'm doing, or I don't agree with that. And that's where some irritation happens. And
Mhm.
basically, what in those cases then helps is really just go back to the basics. Like, hey, what are we as a company trying to do here, and what role do we both play, and who's responsible for what? And hey, we're all in this together. We're all actually trying to do the same thing. Solve a lot of those irritations and those conflicts.
So just taking a step back and looking at big picture, like, okay, wait, oh, before we fight about this, what's the ultimate goal? And then so then it sounds like it's more one-on-one. Like it would be me coming to you and saying, hey, I'm irritated about something. Let's work on this. It's not like people are going to managers or.
No, basically we have a very since we are small, we have a very informal culture, and we know each other as a company. Maybe it's also interesting to mention, like, every year. This year was in December. We meet up with the whole company together. So last December we were in Buenos Aires, where Mural where it all began for Mural, of course, and we met there with the whole company, and that's incredibly valuable to meet everybody in person, to have a barbecue together, to have fun together, to work together. And I still reap the benefits of that now. Like, for me, there in Mural there was a time before I met everybody and after I met everybody. Now
Yeah.
it's so much easier to to talk to someone, to align with someone.
Yeah, I mean, I was all virtual all the time, and I didn't believe in meeting in person until my team that I work with, we met in person for the first time after 5 years. It changed everything. And there's nothing like hanging out over a bowl of nachos together, or a barbecue or a beer or whatever drink. Yeah, it just accelerates the team building. So I do recommend getting together in person if you can. So yeah.
Definitely.
I can imagine. Okay, so we're running close to time, but I have so many questions. So okay, I want to step away from Mural for a second and ask you about this Nomad Cruise, which when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, I saw like, oh, you went on this Nomad Cruise. It's pretty interesting. So what I read is it's a biannual skill sharing journey for digital nomads. And there was one there, it's a 14-day sail between certain places. I don't know if it's different every time, but there's one from Gran Canaria to Panama. So it's 14 days on a boat. I'll let you describe, like, what is the Nomad Cruise, and what attracted you to it?
Yeah, exactly. A good point. What attracted to me? Let's start with that. At the time before I went for the first time, I went twice actually. I was still working at IBM. I was working in a corporate, and I was unhappy about my job. I didn't know what I really wanted to do, but I knew I wanted something different. I decided to quit my job to go traveling and explore. Very millennial thing to do of me, of course. And then a friend pointed me out, like, hey, have you seen this Nomad Cruise thing? It sounds cool. And I checked it out. And I love the idea of it because, indeed, as you mentioned, it is a skill sharing journey for digital nomads. What it basically means, the Nomad Cruise organization rents a part of a cruise ship that goes from Europe to Latin America. It has different routes every year. And it gathers a group of digital nomads on there. It's a growing amount, but like when I went the first time, there were 250 people. The last time there were 500 digital nomads
Wow.
there, who actually all co-create the program for that cruise. So it's a skill sharing journey for professional skills, but also very much for more personal development, for things like yoga, meditation, sports, improv, whatever you name, like the things that you have heard about but you have never tried, you can try on the Nomad Cruise. And it would look like different every almost every day, although there was some structure to it. Whereas in the morning she would have like keynotes of people who have something super interesting to share. And in the afternoon, you have the whole afternoon of meetups and workshops where people actually teach you things. And then, of course, there are parties, there are sports, there is a lot of things to enjoy on a cruise ship.
Yeah, food. I hear food is one of the
Food,
things.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So
It's
good
all
that there's
inclusive.
sports. So sorry, what?
It's all inclusive, so there is an abundance of food and drinks.
I can imagine. And it's 14 days on a cruise ship.
Yes, exactly. And even though it is 14 days, but it usually stops on islands in between. There are not so many islands as you might know between Europe and the Americas. So the islands are mainly in the end when we were in the Caribbean, and from sailing from Gran Canaria, I think the first one was towards the Caribbean, was around 8 days at the ocean. And I did tend to enjoy those days more rather than when we were actually hopping off on the island for a day and coming back, because being locked up on this cruise ship actually gave us like really like a community feeling, and everybody bonded really well in those days.
Yeah, because you're all in one place. You can't go anywhere. It's sort of this sort of exclusive thing that you're doing at the time. And what are
Exactly.
some
Yeah.
of the skills that you learned on this Nomad cruise? What were some of the workshops you attended?
So actually, the first time that I went, I really enjoyed going to. Well, let's start off with saying like I went to almost everything. I was super overwhelmed after that first one because I just tried out everything. I didn't have any focus as to what I wanted to learn. I just wanted to learn it all. So actually, I went to like meditation workshops. I went to cryptocurrency talks. I learned about how to set up your online e-commerce business. I learned about web development. I learned about so many things.
Dang, I love it. And the content is all curated by whoever shows up. So it's sort of like a
Yeah, so
Bill conference or
it is curated a little bit curated beforehand. Like they make a program beforehand, but everybody who is speaking is also just attending the cruise, of course, as you cannot just hop on and hop off.
so what's the biggest reason for the digital nomads for working this way? I mean, why are people doing this?
Yeah, so the reason the founder of Nomad Cruise, I think, set this up is to find like a community of like-minded people, because digital nomads as a people are often traveling around independently, alone, going to places like Thailand, like to Colombia, to Bali, working from there online, sitting in a co-working space, but having a hard time to connect to other people who are living maybe like a more normal life, like living an office job. And they're always trying to connect with like-minded people. And what the Nomad Cruise has brought to many of them, I think, is this community of like-minded people, and that is what I clearly saw on this cruise when I went for the first time, but maybe even more afterwards, because for the weeks and the months and almost years, I think afterwards, people continue traveling with each other, with people that they met on this cruise, because they have similar interests, similar lifestyle, and I think that is what really attracts people to keep on coming. That's why I also went for a second time. I built such a big group of friends there who I wanted to see again and to travel around with again. So I think that's the big attractive side of it.
Indeed, because I think to people, I mean, like my dad, if my dad is still trying to understand what I do, you know, like what's going on. And so I can imagine that if you're a digital nomad and your parents have never heard of this before, then it can be, or your community has never heard of this before, it can seem like a really radical thing to go do. And it's nice to be around other people who are also doing the same thing. And I can say like, no, you're not crazy. This is a viable way of making a living. It's totally okay to do this. Here's the tips. Here's how to keep yourself sane. So do you have the same then? I mean, are you just mostly based in Amsterdam, or do you still travel around a lot? Do you?
Yeah, so I am what I call, well, a part-time digital nomad. I don't think I even am. I have a lot of friends who are really traveling around full-time around the world. I've tried it for a few months, and I didn't enjoy it that much. I really prefer to have a home base, and that is Amsterdam for me now, where I spend most of the year. And then there is the occasional trip for work or for myself, where I would travel and combine. Well, I would combine travel and work, but I'm here predominantly, and so are a lot of these people that I met on the Nomad Cruise who like the concept of just maybe traveling for 2 or 3 months of the year, and for the rest stay in Europe. Maybe travel for winter. I think it's a good idea.
Indeed. Yeah, get rid of the winter. Yeah, I'm the same. I like a home base. The traveling a lot, it just cracks me out no matter what I do, no matter how many luxuries I buy myself. I still somehow, it's just, if it's too much, then I crack out. How do you keep yourself, how do you keep the work-life balance sane for yourself? Because we were talking earlier about, you're working with people in Buenos Aires and in San Francisco, and like as you're going to bed or you want to turn off at night, they're just really, their days are just getting started, and you could just keep working pretty easily. I mean, how do you keep that balance for yourself?
Yeah, that's definitely a struggle that I have, and that have learned over time, and I'm still iterating on like what works best to me in that regard. I think it's all about balance, and like not how do you say it? Like breaking up my day into parts. So what I really like doing is just working in the morning for a little bit, and then doing a workout and going for lunch. And I really take probably definitely 1 hour, usually like 2 or sometimes even 3 hours for that, to really break up the day. Working out is really a meditative habit to do. So I start work totally refreshed after that. And but as you said, like I am working with across these different time zones. So especially in the evening, that's where my problem to switch off, because when I try to log out, which is usually around 7, everything Slack is basically rambling, emails are coming in, and it's hard to switch off. So I really have to plan something for my evening. If I would just stay at home, I keep on working, and that honestly that happens quite often. But if I just plan to go for dinner or for drinks with a friend, or maybe like a meetup or something, that actually cuts it off for me, and that is super helpful. And
Yeah.
the other thing is maybe what I learned to do over the last months is I'm not doing any digital devices in my bedroom anymore. That's like a no-go zone. My phone doesn't come in there anymore, and it helped improve my sleep by a lot.
Yeah, it's all the small, easy things that we keep hearing and just not doing. It's the same. I've had to put my phone out of my bedroom. My husband has his phone out of his bedroom or out of our bedroom, and yeah, it helps tremendously. I'm so sad at how much it helps, actually.
Yeah.
It's like you don't wake up thinking about work because I don't check email the first thing in the morning. It's like I actually have to do something else before the email goes on, so I can imagine. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep telling people the thing that you have to worry about with remote working is not people being lazy. It's the opposite. It's burnout, because it's so easy to always be on. I mean, especially across time zones.
No, exactly. I can see that happening in our company as well. Everybody's always working. Some colleagues are very good at switching off. They really say like, okay, that's it for the day. I'm logging off. They even say it like that in Slack, and then we know they're off. But often people like myself as well are online 24/7 and hardly take breaks, hardly take holidays actually. Even though we have the flexibility to basically take as much holidays as we want in Mural. Actually, it's super flexible, and you do whatever you want. But everybody tends to keep on working, because it's, I don't know how that's happening actually.
Yeah, well, but also when you like each other and you like your colleagues and the people that you're working with, and you tend to want to hang out with them more, and it's sort of it's a camaraderie that gets built. So all you managers out there listening who are worried about your people being lazy, let me tell you, that's not the problem. It's not
Exactly.
the problem. Oh man, okay, so I could go on and on, but we're gonna have to wrap this up. I would say last question, okay, second to the last question, which is, what advice would you give for people who are just starting out on remote working or digital nomads? What advice would you give people now, looking back on your own experience?
Yeah. I would definitely advise to have like a transition period, not to jump into it full time, basically, not just jumping from your office job into grabbing your laptop and your backpack and going to Bali and just doing it all at once. But really, like, if you're starting to do like remote work, or maybe trying to become a digital nomad, try to go for a weekend away, even if it's just like going to an island in Spain for the weekend or for a week. Try to work from there and see how that works for you and how that works for your work and for your work-life balance. But not doing it all at once.
Yeah, great. So small steps, transition
Definitely.
period. See what's
Yeah.
great advice. Okay, and I still have one more question, but and then I promise after that it will be the last question. Okay, so second to the last question again. Could you ever go back to working in an office?
No, there is no way. No, I'm very clear about that, and I experience what the normal office life is also every day because of the clients that I'm interacting with, which I'm having a lot of fun with. But I'm never going back to that. Like the freedom and the flexibility that it gives to me, and the motivation, it's worth a lot to me.
I love it. Yeah, I could never go back either unless I had to. I had to 5 years ago and it was terrible. It was a terrible experience. I hated every minute of it. Got paid a lot, but I hated every minute of it. The actual last question, which is, if people want to learn more about you, what's the best place to find you? How do they contact you?
Best place to find me would be on LinkedIn. Just search for Wout Hermans. There are not so many around there. I think there's only 2, so you'll find me there.
Okay, yeah, Wout Hermans at Mural even. So then
at Mural even, yeah,
exactly. Specific, yeah. Wout, thank you so much for talking to me today. I'm sorry I went over the time. It was just I had too many questions, and yeah, that's what happens. But I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. Thank you.
No worries. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Until next time, be powerful.